Hello, ladies. How are you doing? Karibuni to the Modern Woman. Hi T. Kwa kweli nimefurahi sana. The response of the ladies for this kind of event. Everyone who gave me feedback said, Bahati, we need this. As women, we need a safe space where we can come and talk about the changes that we are going through as women. Sawa. So I just want to share 5 minutes before I call up my first speaker. I want to share why we're hosting this event and what we are going to be doing today. Sawa. So the Modern Woman began for me 10, 11 years ago. And it began because I was finding myself, I was looking to find my true identity as a young girl, as a young woman, finishing college, my first degree. I was really asking myself, like, who am I as a woman? What is my contribution? And how do I find my uniqueness? So in all that, it's been a journey of 11 years. And I can finally say, here she is. She has been found. And I'm so excited with the woman that she is. I am. 100%. 100%. And I don't say that apologetically. I know exactly who I am. I know what God has called me to do. And I'm excited because I get to partner with God on being the fullness of who I am. And that is grand. So women, we need to stop apologizing for who we are. So 10, 11 years ago, when I was trying to just discover and find who is this woman, there is something that I can say was an epiphany. It was a eureka moment. And that moment was realizing that, number one, women are so powerful, but also that there is something that was uniquely put in the woman that is needed in society. And then number three, that there is so much that the modern woman is going through, myself included. So this was a journey that I took. And I feel it's a journey that many women are taking, especially in this day and time. There's so much that as women we are being bombarded with. There's so much we are going through. And this is that environment that, by the grace of God, I will use this platform to bring healing to women, to bring sanity to women, to bring restoration to womanhood. So I have themed this redefining the modern woman, because the modern woman, I feel, is under attack. Hello? Do I have modern women in here? All right. So with that, the revelation I got 10, 11 years ago was that women, we are the answer to society's problems. I'm going to explain that, and I'm going to back that up in my keynote before I close this event. But I don't want to spoil the show. I have invited some fantastic women who are going to prove exactly what I'm saying. And I will come at the end with a keynote to explain to you why I think we actually have the answers to the problems that we see in society. So karibuni sana. I'm so happy to see all of you here. Today we have 3 sessions. The first session, we are going to be looking at feminism from different angles. I brought 2 wonderful ladies. They're going to do a presentation because I feel we need a balance of perspective. Sawa. I know we are going to also have different opinions here on the floor, so we're going to allow for women to also contribute and share their feedback. And then later on we have a panel discussion about modernism and tradition. So without further ado, I think that's enough of an introduction. I would love to welcome our first speaker. We've entered our first session, Mary Ndaro. Mary Ndaro, karibu sana. Yes. I'm really glad to be connected to Mary. I love what she said. She said, Bahati, I want this to be a discussion.
I would love to have a conversation with you guys. So kama kuna mtu ambaye ana swali, ana worries, ana anything, ana nini, or some understanding, or if you want to understand feminism, or you just don't want to understand it, or you read it, that just don't give a damn what it is. And I want us to have that conversations. And asante pia kwa kunikaribisha kwenye sebule yenu. And dada Bahati alikuwa anasema kwenye statement yake kabla hiyo ya mwisho, kwenye opening rather, kwamba women are the answer to all the problems. Probably you guys are. I am not. And I don't want to be the answer to all the problems. And you know why I don't want to be the answer to all the problems? Because I think women, we are taking so much. We want to carry everything and everyone except ourselves. Kuna mtu ambaye ajui feminism ni nini? First of all, feminism is an ideology. Ufeminia ni ideology, ni itikadi that guides you. Now, as a human being, as women and as people, we are all guided by an ideology. So feminism is ideology that believes in the rights of women. Women means girls, but also understanding that as women we are diverse. Hatufanani kama wanawake. Tuna tofauti zetu za kimatabaka, za kimadaraja, za umri, za shule, za kila kitu. We are not all one. Meelewa, sisi ni wanawake wa aina mbalimbali na tuna vitu vya aina mbalimbali. Kuna mahali tunakutana na kuna mahali tunaachana. So feminism also believes in disagreeing. Na ndio maana napata shida nikisikia mtu akisema, mwanamke akikosea mtu akasema ametuaibisha wanawake. I'm like, no, jiongelee. Mimi hajaniaibisha, sikumtuma. So kuna market tunapenda kumiliki matatizo communally. Some women will love owning problems. Inapokuja mwanamke amekosea, we become a community and we own the problem. Huyu ametuaibisha wanawake. But we don't own success. So as feminists is also understanding that women are individuals. Kwamba wewe ni mtu binafsi, wewe ni mtu, mimi ni mtu, lakini kuna mali tunakutana kama watu na kama wanawake. Na kwamba wanawake wote hatutakubaliana kwenye kila kitu, tutatofautiana, and that's healthy. Kwa sababu sisi ni viumbe wenye akili na utashi na utimamu. So hatutakubaliana kwenye kila kitu. And I think that's also healthy. Lakini pia tuna uchaguzi. So feminism and ideology ambayo inakufanya unachambua mifumo, kwa sababu feminism inachambua mifumo ambayo ni kandamizaji, ambayo ni ya kinyonyaji, inakupa macho ya kuangalia kila kitu na kiangalia kwa nini kiko hivi. Kwa nini natizamwa hivi? Kwa nini nimewekwa hapa? Kwa mfano, nimetoka leo tulikuwa tunajadili kuna mali tunatoa mawazo kwenye hii dira ya taifa 2050 vision ambayo imeanza hiyo process. Alafu unajiangalia kwamba tuna miaka zaidi ya 50 ya uhuru. Lakini kwenye kumiliki mfano mali kama ardhi, ni 8% tu ya wanawake wanamiliki ardhi kwa majina yao. Yani mimi Ndaro jina langu lipo. Wakati wanaume ni zaidi ya 25. Ukija kwenye kumiliki nyumba sijui na nini, namba inazidi kushuka chini. Ukija kwenye elimu tunashuka chini. Ukija kwenye swala la ajira tunashuka, bado tuko chini. Lakini unakuja kuangalia bado sisi tunategemewa, and this is where I hope the modern ladies we can have a conversation kuhusu hii. We are now bringing so much of this I'm a superwoman thing. By the way, just so we know, I am not a superwoman. I don't want to be a superwoman. I am not looking forward to become a superwoman, because that is killing myself. I don't want to be a superwoman because I know kuna vitu ambavyo siviwezi kuvifanya, and I know I am tired, and I know kuna vitu are off limit. So one of the other things that we understand as feminists is also to understand the structures and the systems. Na hapa tunaangalia mifumo yote, tunaangalia mfumo dume, lakini tunaangalia mifumo mingine. Kuna mifumo ya kibepari pia tunaiangalia. And how do they connect? And how zinavyotumika na zinavyochagizana wakati mwingine kutuumiza wanawake. And I will use this example. Sasa tuna group la wanawake ambao wanasema I can do it all. So wanasema, mimi ni mkurugenzi, but when I go home I can wash dishes. Who told you washing dishes is a big deal? Yeah, you wash dishes, so what? Kila mtu anaosha dishes. Ukishakula unategemea na kuosha, si ni wewe? What is so big about that? Why do we think we have to say kwamba naosha vyombo? Why do we think I have to say, to announce to the world? Ushai kumsikia mwanaume yote, CEO, waziri yote akisema mimi ni waziri, mimi ni CEO, lakini nikirudi nyumbani mimi ni baba bwana. Ushai kumsikia? Ushai kumsikia? Kwamba mimi nikirudi nyumbani naosha vyombo bwana. Mimi nikirudi nyumbani napika bwana. Nikirudi nyumbani mimi natengeneza bustani. Unasikia baba wanasema? They just own the position they are in. Unless unamuuliza kwenye maswala ambapo sasa amesimama kama mume kama baba, then atataja majukumu yake kama mume kama nini? Kama baba. But jamii imetupa na kuna nyenzo zimewekwa kutukumbusha always to go back. So, I own all this. But then lakini mimi bado ni yule mwanamke ambaye mnampenda. Because it is so scary to be a woman and to be powerful and to be confident in who you are and in your own skin. That is very scary. And that's what, and by the way, tunapoongelea kuhusu mifumo, kati ya watu ambao ni wazuri kwenye kubeba mfumo ya ukandamizaji ni sisi wanawake. We love it because it makes us so happy, because it makes us feel so desirable and so wanted and so felt. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If that makes you happy, please, more power to you. Very more power to you. But I think we need to, so feminism gives me the tools to be able to articulate and understand that I know I am standing here as Mary and I'm speaking as Mary. So if I own my properties, I own them as an individual, as a person. And I need to be able to introduce myself. I don't need to apologize for what I have or what I am. And that does not mean I am going to be arrogant. Because I think feminism is also not about nakukanyaga ili mimi nipande. That is not feminism. And people are saying, wanasema mbwa mpe jina baya, eh? So people have given us feminist jina baya. And it's really difficult to be a feminist, but I love being a feminist because it gives me so much tools to understand how the society connects and how we organize as people, as women, as young women, and as, the mid-generation, and as the older women. And I think as a feminist, I'm still also learning. I'm still interrogating myself, and I'm still reflecting of who I am as a person, but also how am I connected to my sisters and to my other sisters? How are we connected, and how are we disconnected? And sometimes it's not all disconnection is unhealthy. Sometimes it's actually something so beautiful. So I love when somebody says, I was at, I think I was somewhere, and the lady was, I think it was a lady and a guy, and they ordered food, and the bill came, and the lady said, "Mimi silipi." I said, "Sitaki kabisa kusikia habari za kulipa. Sitaki kabisa. Na mimi nimeamua kwa makusudi sitaki kusema najua habari za haki za wanawake kwa sababu ni ngumu sana, nimeamua mimi nitabaki hapa nilipo." And I applauded her because she has made a choice and she knows. But also feminism is not about killing yourself. Kwa sababu sasa hivi unasikia mnapigania haki za wanawake 50 kwa 50. And 50 kwa 50 they only want our money, nothing else. Apparently 50-50 imegeuka ni pesa. So when you give them the money, and all the time when they're talking about 50-50, they will be saying, "Oh, mbona amleti hela?" But when we give money, our money is silent. See what I mean? Our contribution is silent, very silent. And they want you to give more. And what we do as women, we give more so we can seem nice. We can seem hatujaacha mila na tamaduni zetu. Hatujaziacha kabisa. Kwa sababu it is scary kuacha mila na tamaduni. And as a feminist, I challenge mila na tamaduni. As a feminist, na challenge dini. As a feminist, I challenge marriage institution. By challenging them, I'm not saying dini ni mbaya. I'm not saying marriage ni mbaya. I'm not saying institution zote ni mbaya. But I'm challenging them because kwa sababu najua zimejengwa kwenye misingi ambayo sio ya usawa na sio misingi ambayo inatuangalia wanawake kama watu. So I challenge that. I'm a Christian, but a spiritual Christian. I'm not a churchy Christian. But I love God. But my relationship with God is just between me and Him. So I don't go out and start thinking that my all is my all. And in a feminist principles, every story and experience matters. Your story, my story, your experience, my experience are different, and yours matters. Na kuelewa kwamba sisi ni wanawake ambao tunapita kwenye vitu tofauti na tutatofautiana as human beings. And sometimes wanatumia, kuna hizi statements za wanawake hatupendani. I'm like, yeah, wapi imeandikwa lazima nikupende simply because we happen to be women? Yani wapi? Why should I love you simply because we're both women? Who even came up with that? kwamba I need to love you on the basis of we happen to have a VJ. Come on now. There is more to friendship. So kuna hiyo ambayo people need to understand kwamba women are people. So as people, we're going to like each other. And sometimes you're not going to so much like each other. And it's okay. We're going to be friends. And sometimes you're not going to be friends. Not because we're women. Because we are people. And I think ndio ambacho wanawake unasema wanawake hatupendani. Kwa sababu tu mwanamke Rosie na Amina na Mary walikufanyia kitu. Unachukua 50% ya wanawake wote unaounganisha. Like my friend, mention your friends wanawake wenzio ambao wamekukosea. Do not bring us in the circle. And we love these stories kusema wanawake tunaangushana chini. So I think as a feminist, it just gives me those tools. And one of the principles that I want to read for you as we finish, and we can have a conversation baadaye. We name and define ourselves publicly. And those are feminist principles, African feminist principles. Maana pia tunapenda kuambiwa pia kwamba sio za kwetu, sio za Afrika. The African feminist principles, we name and define ourselves and we call ourselves feminists. We have no ifs, we have no buts. We protect our sisters and we protect ourselves. We protect our being as human beings. And we love us, but also understanding that we cannot love us if our sisters are in trouble. So we reach out to our sisters, but also understanding that sometimes our sisters might not be at the same stage where we are, but we are still sisters. And as feminist sisters, we look out for each other, encourage each other, and pick up each other. But one of the most important things that we're trying to do, and I think maybe that will go to the modern woman, is we own our success, we own our struggles, we own our challenges, and we own our failures. You have to own it, because as a feminist we also believe in accountability. Huwezi kusema tu nilifanya lakini ni mwanamke. No, there is some level of accountability that you need to be accountable for your own actions. But you need to understand who are you kama mtu. Kama huwezi kujidefine, ndo mtu atakwambia wewe ni mfeminia, hutaolewa. I'm like, by the way, just so you know, marriage was like plan Q. Kwa hiyo unanisimulia mimi plan Q, mimi bado plan A naitafuta. And I'm not saying marriage ni mbaya, but I'm talking about choices and the things that we need to understand and value as women, and how we relate with our counterpart who are men. How can we have healthy relationship and understanding, but also how can we maintain our power and our strength without destroying the other? Unless by destroying is siwezi kukumbatia mfumo ambao unajua unanididimiza, unanidondosha as a person ili nionekane ni mwanamke wa maadili. Actually, I wake up in the morning saying, leo naenda kugombana na maadili. Every time when I wake up in the morning nasema, I am going to be fighting with maadili, naenda kugombana na dini leo, naenda kugombana na kitu. Sio kwa kugombana kwamba nina stress. I am just telling myself so I'm aware kwamba things will happen and I have to be prepared. But most importantly, as feminists, wellness is key. Is really, really important. The wellness and well-being is really key. Taking care of yourself is really, really important. Finding happiness, healthy happiness and joy in your heart about yourself, knowing you, really knowing you, and loving your own company is really important. Me sitting peke yangu with my glass of kahawa, mimi kikombe cha kahawa. I drink one, ndio maana naisi hata kahawa ni kwenye glass. So with my glass of wine, kikombe cha kahawa, kikombe cha chai, by myself, na pia nika enjoy my own company, because as a woman I need to know me, and I need to be my first best friend, because if I can't love me, who can love me? I think it's not fair to want other people to love you and like you and understand you when you don't even know you, understand you, like you, or even stand yourself. Unabaki kwenye chumba tu nusu saa asubuhi mpaka saa 6 unapigia marafiki zako wote kwenye contact ambaye yuko around ili ukahang naye, kwa sababu you cannot hang out with yourself. So as a feminist, I am not saying it's perfect, it's a journey, but finding you, looking for you, loving you, but also understanding that you always have to interrogate yourself and making sure you're not putting someone else down. Asante.
Can we give her a round of applause? Wow. Jamani, wanawake. Can we give her a round of applause? Tusiwe wachoyo. Wow. I have never heard feminism spoken like that. And the reason why I brought Mary is because she is a declared feminist and she does a lot of work in that space. So what she's talking about, she lives. Yeah? So thank you, Mary, for that sobering perspective. Hatujamaliza ndo kwanza tunaanza. Wanawake tupo. Wanawake mpo. All right, so I'm going to bring another wonderful, I don't know how to describe this woman. She's a lot. She's also a lot. But to me, she's a sister. She's a friend. She's an inspiration. And I don't know, I don't feel like I can introduce her, so I'm going to allow her to introduce herself. The great, the wonderful Khalila. Do I pronounce it right? Khalila. Khalila. Jamani wengine sisi wapare. Ustone. Kels, also known as Kels Mbowe. Kels, thank you so much for coming. She's a very busy woman. So please give her all your attention because she's so loaded and she's so busy. For me, it's a privilege that she made time. All these women are very, very busy. So please give her your undivided attention. She is going to be giving us a different perspective of feminism, and then we will get into a discussion. Karibu sana, Kels.
So then after that introduction, I have and it gives me a great privilege to be here. Even when Bahati called, we had discussions around this topic. And maybe I can start by sharing a few things that might trigger you. A few years ago, I was driving with a few friends to Arusha, and we were going to do a project there. And there was a big conversation about feminism, and they were, women can da-da-da-da-da. And I said, hey, you can't call me a feminist. And the car erupted. In fact, one of my friends, she pulled to the side, she was driving. She said, what did you say? And I said, as a mother to a son, I'm dreaming of a world that we could that could build a space where they can both exist, have choice, have freedom, have agency, without feeling that the tables are skewed. I understand what we're saying about we have to fight for the rights of women simply because, and that's the work that I do as well, simply because currently there are regressive patterns and systems that are keeping women from advancing. But for me, as a mother of a young boy, it is my duty to create a world that works for both. And I said, I understand the ideology of feminism. I understand the strategy with which it started, but I also understand how people who do not understand it have distorted the positivity of what feminism is in our context. I love everything you shared because most of the things that you shared, I was like, yes, 100%. Because there are different spaces where we can walk into and we hear women talking of feminism, and I personally walk out and I say I don't relate to that. Because you're talking to me about a world where my children, my grandchildren, my male grandchildren will not be able to survive, where we have to have another movement that now creates a space for them. I understand that we are creating and fixing a gap that was there, but in fixing that gap, we don't have to create another one. Right? And so that's where I start my stance. So I'm going to start with talking about what gender equality means to me. So for me, when it comes to feminism, it was an ideology that came to push forward gender equality, right? For me, it's about having the ability and the freedom to exercise and live out my full rights as a human being, as a person. That mimi mwenyewe, I'm a person the same way as a man. I have capabilities that one way or the other he might not even be able to understand, but at the same time I can look at your capabilities and value them and see how they can play a part in advancing me. At the same time, my being female does not in any way relegate my abilities to make an active contribution to society, to add value across spheres, praise God, as well as build a better world for humans that I am privileged to bring into it. Doing all that, notwithstanding judgment, because I make the choices that I make, bullying and condemnation of the decisions I make as aligned to my purpose and life journey. And sometimes all this comes from both male and female. And I love what you said, because yes, a lot of women are actually at the center of these regressive norms that we are fighting to battle. For me, feminism is a call to a holistic human experience. A holistic human experience. And I'll speak about that a little bit. Where our world benefits from the innate advantages and abilities of having both parts of the human species play a role in its advancement and progress. There is no way a yin and yang can work when one yin is considered the weaker yin. Does that make sense? There's no way you can have two sides of a coin adding value when one side of that coin is wiped away, right? So it's basically showcasing, listen, both these parts. A coin, when you go and buy something and unampatia mtu shilingi 500, upande wa pili kukiwa hapana kitu, hawezi kupokea hiyo kitu. And yet, that's the world that we're existing in. Upande wa pili uko faded, upande wa pili umechakaa, and somehow the one shiny part has to be the one that adds value. There's no such thing. And so there's no way we can advance holistically without that. And so I want to talk a little bit about the movement and where it started. So the history of the movement, the feminist movement, started in, of course, zamani, lakini documented, it's basically the late 1900s and 20th century, because women were seen as the inferior being, a vessel of production, a vessel of production whose brain is perhaps too incapable, too underdeveloped to add great value. Mwanamke too. Why? Let's go back to history. I love history. I'm like a history phobe. Over a human history, even though we have had great advancements in technology and innovation, our ways of labor have changed drastically. There was a point in history when brute strength was crucial for survival of mankind. Brute strength meaning what? We're fighting beasts, nature, and one another, was necessary to plow hard-soiled fields and ensure harvests and meals. In those times, the amazing physical and muscular strength that men have was critical to do all those things. Kwa kweli, you need to roll a boulder. Right now, I'm like, Kakan, go do it. I understand go do it. Because God made your muscles differently, and I recognize that I am fine with standing here. And so basically, there was a time that was the case. So men would go out in the fields and do all this work because there was a lot of manual work to it, right? So in those times, the role of women appeared, quote unquote, to be tamer, much more domestic, complementing the labor of our male counterparts. We would take care of all the things so he could focus on the manual whole. The truth of the matter is that both played a symbiotic duty or had a symbiotic relationship. I don't know if you know that what that is. Again, that yin and yang, right? Complemented one another. But which one? If you go back to history, I know we've all looked at movies. When we look at these movies and then you see the men in the fields fighting wars, see the six-pack pale, the woman anatengeneza chakula. Oh, you have come back. Who do you consider the hero? Even now, let's talk about our societal mental models. Who do you consider the hero? You consider Schwarzenegger? There's that perception that the duty that played a more crucial role is that machismo role. That man who goes and fights the beast and brings home the bread. Right? But then there was that thing where, of course, in that context, right, women appeared as the weaker sex. That's what that perception came through, but it was physical, right? Weaker sex is a perception built from poor reflection of the times and looking at one variable. We were looking at that one variable, msuli. Because right now, even though, yes, we in terms of strength, women can do a lot. But we can look starkly at what God has created and say that the physiology of men and women are different. And we can recognize those differences and find ways to actually also celebrate them, right? And so at that one point, those were the things that actually made that difference, right? And hence, that's where the whole term of the weaker sex come from. It had nothing to do with our mental capabilities. It had nothing to do with our cognizant abilities and so on and so forth. And then, of course, there was the advancement of technology. There were several ways of conducting production activities that shifted. Now, with the aid of machines, work that was initially and easily possible for the brute masculine can now also be conducted by women. Now, women, you don't have to stay inside. Now we can also go and say, hey, do you know the skills that I used to organize the house, to take care of the 5 children, the 7 children, to make sure we are organized? That skill, now it can play a part outside the home. And that's a skill that the other side also didn't necessarily have to hone because they didn't have it. Because they didn't have to do it at that point. Because let's talk about context. You need to live context, right, of the times and understand history. So then, the unique skills in organization, attention to detail when handling children, the ability to multiply, to multiply and sustain resources, right? That multiplication. Kwamba unaweza kunipa kitu nika multiply. And then basically it's innate in women, right? Of course, kuna wengine ambao tutaendelea kuwaombea. Are we together? Right. Women now started showing up and saying we can do more. We're capable of more and we are here. Right? But then there are several marks in history which forced women into roles outside the home, albeit faster than people were prepared for. Let's talk about the world wars. World War I, World War II. Let's really look at history. These different points in history where the men were out fighting in the fields, activities of production had to happen. So you are in the home, but you also have to be outside the home because society has to move, right? And so it was fast. So women adapted. But then when the men came back from war, and there's a lot of publications, we can check that out. When men came back from war, they found women in spaces that were initially their own, where they're ready. Mpaka sasa hivi mtu akija kwako akikwambia, yani wewe unaona kama una own kitu, alafu mtu unaona anakuingilia. It is human tendency to say unaniingilia. Yani unaingilia himaya yangu. It is human tendency. But then of course these shifts were massive. So now these men are coming back from war and then they're finding you sitting in their positions, and then now they are inadequate. You do not necessarily need them in the way you did before, because now you've also realized that, boo, I can do this too and I can do it better. Shughuli pevu. And what do the systems that be do? The systems they were in place. They kept propagating the narrative that worked at a stage in history in a different season. Do we understand seasons? I'm aware that several of us come from different spaces, but when I talk about seasons in life, have you ever been in a space where you're trying to implement the beliefs that you had in a season that passed in a new season? That you have changed as a human being. I believe we all believe kwamba tunabadilika, right? The you right now is not the you 5 years ago. But imagine if the you 5 years ago, you put that person and you try to use the same beliefs that you had back then and make them work here. Would that work? Would you move? But that's exactly what we were trying to do. To bring out what worked huko in the brute machismo era into this different era. And we're saying, it has to work. It has to work. Because what's the most uncomfortable thing to do? Change. It's uncomfortable. Especially when that change feels that it's taking something away from you. It's uncomfortable. And so then here, we're in a point in history where women did not vote. There's a point, right? Where women did not have the rights to their own bodies. Where women did not have the right to make any decision unless inapitishwa. Not because they couldn't, but because survival decisions were made in the battlefield and hunting grounds. Let's talk about voting, right? There's a point where it was very clear kwamba wanawake were not voting. Do we know why women didn't vote? Where did that come from? I mean, where did that come from? There's a point in history where decisions about leadership were made in the battlefield. They were made in the hunting ground, and women were in the home. Right? But now, considering things were changing, but the systems were not changing. So then, without clear understanding of the contextual background to inform systemic shifts in societal structures, we have lazily worked to fit a square peg into a round hole. And that's what we're consistently doing, right? So women fought back, and of course women fought back, right? Fought back to shift these regressive patterns, and unfortunately some of this morphed into a battle of the sexes, and that's what we have now. It became a battle of the sexes. Women against men. There's no ridiculous nonsense. The fact that a man would think that they can exist in this society and be able to develop it without a woman is ridiculous notion, right? So when it comes to, rather than focusing on the holistic benefits of the full human force, that full yin and yang across sectors to tackle challenges, tables were hoarded by those who had them, by many who refused to let go of the pieces, the pie pieces. When I say the pieces of the pie, right? They didn't want to let go. To let go of the perceptions that there was a perception that there's not enough to go around. Havitutoshi. You know, there's no way we can all exist in this space and be okay. No, you know what I mean? And so then this lack mentally has been a disease. This perception of there's not enough to go around. Yani huu ni ugonjwa, ni ukoma kabisa, is a disease that has crippled the human experience and perpetuated destructive behavior across spheres. And we can talk about between this, we can talk about gender roles, but we can also talk about corruption. We can also talk about a lot of things that are messed up in our society. Is basically the whole perception of lack. And Nandi protect me. It's about me and me alone. It's great to protect me, but then the me has to exist in the whole. The whole cannot benefit if each person just exists as a me. And so now, here we are, groups of women pushing for their space in society, groups of men holding their place in society. And eventually, this is back then, eventually it became this one big organized movement, it spread. But then the movement had to battle context. I love everything that you said, and I wish like you could get a pedestal. Because there's so many women who are propagating about their feminists, but the things they say, I'm like, do you really understand what you're talking about? Do you really understand your stance? Do you really understand the impact of what you're saying, not just to you, but to the society around you? Do you truly understand how you're destroying the child you have brought through? And even if they're not yours, but the next generation, because every single seed that we plant will bear fruit. There is nothing we do or say in the now. It cannot be just about you. And for me, that is the belief. Now, if I wake up in the morning and it's just about me, I believe, I have my hours of self-care. I believe in self-care. But even my self-care is to the benefit of the world. Because if I'm not 100%, the world cannot get me at 100%. And for me, that's feminism. Saying, I am going to show up fully because there are things that I have that, again, my brothers, I love them. But there's no way they can even comprehend the way my brain works. Sometimes, you know, then I just go to God. God, help me understand me, because kwa kweli is confusing. What have you done? You know what I mean? So then at the end of the day, we have a battle of the sexes. I started with sharing, let me just finish this story with the Nini in the car with my friends. I want to give you two stories and I just want to close from there. My son, when he was in grade 4, my son is now, I have 3 kids. My son is 14, my daughter is 9, my last born, my third born, there's another one coming. My third born, praise Yani, that I just prophesied. That doesn't mean I'm pregnant, it just means I'm planning. But my third born is 2. So my son comes home, Pharrell, his name's Pharrell, not Phil Williams, just Pharrell. So he comes home and he's studying yuko pale anasoma. Of course, mama yuko nyumbani, so he's pretending that he's really into it because mama has to see, you know. And so he's so confused, and I see him anafungua vitabu and he keeps, I see him shifting in his chair. He's shifting, and of course, considering attention to detail, I go and I walk to him. I'm like, Pharrell, talk to me. What's going on? He's like, nothing. I'm like, no, what's going on? So after convincing him that he wanted to tell me something that he wanted to tell me all along, finally he tells me, and he says, Mom, I don't understand what it means by this. So he shows me in his book. This is a civics and moral. And it shows kwamba kwenye the groups of special needs groups in the society, a woman is one of them. So there's the visually impaired, people living with other abilities, and women. This is in our curriculum. He was so confused. And he said, what does this mean? Is being a woman a disability? I took a moment. One, I was grateful that he thought to ask me the question. And then we had to have a conversation about the fact that I understand the affirmative action that has been put in place to lift up women, but then I also understand the adverse effects it has in the minds of young children when it's not taught well. Because now this boy had the perception kwamba wanawake, usichana wanawake ni nini? Ni ulemavu. Yeah, it was on his page. Look for civics and moral grade 4 books. Thai curriculum. It is right there. And so I went to school. Mimi nilivyokuwa, yani mimi mshakunako. Nikaenda shule the next day. I was like, I want to see the teacher kwa kweli. I need to understand. Because you ain't gonna be just teaching my kids about this. I want to know. Yani mimi shuleni pale wakiniona wanajua there's an issue. I am that parent. Ukimfundisha vibaya mimi nakuja naomba tunaongea, tunajadiliana. And so I talked to this teacher and I was like, okay, what do you mean? I understand what you said, but the way the child processed it is very different from what you meant. So talk to me, I want to understand what you meant. So then when as a parent at home, because we're tacting with the teacher, and the teacher sio kazi ya kumfundisha, mimi kazi yangu ni kumfundisha, mwalimu ananisaidia. So I need to understand wewe unafundisha nini ili mimi nikija huku niweze kupokea goli, mpira nipige goli. Mimi sipokuelewa hatutaelewana. So she tells me kwamba I was teaching them about their roles in society, and of course boys are superior and they need to understand that. They need to understand that women are the weaker sex and they need help. Yeah. Yani kwa kweli mgeniona, nashukuru kwa kwamba mimi kulikuwa kuna Roho Mtakatifu pale. Na I have had very many years of maturity. Because I had to poke a face and try to have a conversation with her. But at the end of the conversation, what I asked her to do, I asked her, can you please try to analyze the reactions and the effects of this teaching to your kids? Angalia, from now on, the conversations that the boys will be having vis-a-vis the conversations that girls will be having, and have a look at how now, the way you're teaching this, I understand where it comes from. Don't get me wrong, I understand affirmative action. But just have a look at the impacts of this teaching to the children. Because from then, of course, my son started talking to my daughter, his young sister, and anambia, mimi mwanaume bwana. Nyumbani, yani kitu ilianzaga, inaanza. And if you kama mzazi, kama you're not nini it, you will lose it. You won't see it. It can act as a joke, it's not a joke. Mimi mwanaume bwana. Wewe mtoto wa kike unaniambia nini? I'm like, hey, tutazungumza. But then what ended up happening, and I talked to this teacher, was the grades of the boys in the class ilianza kushuka. The grades of the girls actually started kidogo climbing up. Why? Because the girls started perceiving kwamba, yani, okay, so some girls ilianza kupanda, kwa wasichana ambao zilishuka walikuwa wa mwisho kabisa. Kwa wachache zilipanda, lakini the boys wali shake kidogo pale. But then there's this perception kwa watoto wa kike kwamba I have to fight for what I have. It is me against the boy. Wanaume, because then now wanaume ndio wanaona kwamba mimi mwanaume bwana. You know? And I saw it again with my daughter when she got to grade 4. Very confused about that. The great thing is the school we'd already had a conversation, so even how the teachers need was a little bit different. But we have to be very careful about these subtle cues in society. And another thing I want to speak to, I said 2 things. I'm sorry, I've probably gone over time. When it comes to the religious, cultural, and traditional norms, the whole concept of marriage, one of the things that we have to understand that most of these constructs that we have taken, these roles in society, they are more cultural than anything. And the only way they keep being perpetuated is when sisi wenyewe tunazisimamia. For me, kwa kweli, like, I am definitely not a superwoman. Neither do I want to be. I agree with you. But I am a strong woman. I'm bold. I am purposed to bring something into this world, and every single day I stand on that. It is so important to connect and have a society of men and women who understand that they play a symbiotic role in progressing society forward. This notion of men versus women is crippling our societies, crippling our homes, and it is being a disadvantage to us sisi wenyewe than not. Mfumo dume is actually terrible for the men as well, because most of the issues that we're seeing in society also happening to the men is not a reason, it's not because of the feminist movement, it's because of mfumo huo wenyewe. And mfumo wenyewe dume, most of the times, I'm gonna say this, is propelled forward by women who don't understand what true feminism truly is. Because then you have this men versus women mentality, which is nonsense. And at the end of the day, I was a single mother for a very long time. There's this notion in society kwamba mwanamke unaweza ukalea wote, I'm just going to have children, yani I'm going to be a single mother because it's the thing, mimi sitaki mwanaume, nataka tu mtoto. When I was in high school, one of the things I will never forget, the most important unit in any society is the family. I was a single mother with a boy. The first time when I had my boy, I was a single mother with a boy, but one of the things I'm grateful I realized was I could never teach that boy how to be a man. Because I've never been a man, I've never woken up with a hard on. I've never woken up with different thoughts. I do not know. I know my aspirations for what a good society is, but I do not know how to be a good man that can make a good society. So even when I was a single mom, it was important for me to find good men who understood what it takes to build a good society, respecting the roles that both men and women can play, and kumkalisha huyu mtoto ambaye learn from this person, because I got no idea. Because if you try to take all your characteristics from me, you're going to be feminine. I'm really confused about what that is. You know what I mean? So this whole notion also of a lot of women who now call themselves kwamba, oh, mimi ni mwanaharakati bwana, sihitaji mwanaume ndugu yangu. That man also has an important role to play in society. Both the man and woman, we must have a symbiotic role. So even as we're talking about women's advancement, we have to understand the history, cultural context, the shifts, and we have to think holistically about how to change mental models, regressive systems, and strategize about how to build both. Because for the woman to flourish, the man also needs to as well. Flourishing does not mean kwamba yeye ndo anachukua kila kitu. It means kwamba naye anaelewa kwamba na wewe unanipa kitu. Na kipokea na nakuwezesha, it's not kuwezesha, I hate that word, natengeneza mazingira ili na wewe uweze coexist within your space. All right? And with that, I perhaps just want to end with a challenge. May we all be extremely curious about the things we take up and the beliefs that we take up. May we take time to research and to truly understand and question the beliefs that we also have. And then we should also think about what does it truly take to build a good society for everybody. And that be the fire that gets us moving. Because I believe with that mindset shift, we will truly accelerate progress for not just the woman, but the entire society, because for society to move forward, the woman also needs to. All right, that's it from me.
Wow, thank you so much. Round of applause. We can do better than that, ladies.